speed of light. Everyone tells you it's impossible, and yet you still ask, is it really? Because impossibility has never stopped curiosity. You've seen barriers fall before. Once heavier than air flight was unthinkable. Once leaving the Earth was only the stuff of myth. Once splitting the atom seemed like fantasy, a trick of imagination rather than reality. And every time the wall cracked, every time the impossible became ordinary. So the question sits with you, quietly but insistently. Why should the speed of light be any different? Why should this be the one line nature refuses to let us cross? You picture the number again, 299,792 kilometers per second. A value so specific it feels holy, almost like scripture. Not a vague boundary, not a guess, but an exact ceiling etched into equations repeated by every experiment confirmed across the universe. A ceiling that laughs at ambition. A ceiling that says, you may dream, but here you stop. And yet something in you resists. You think of how every era has faced its own horizon and how horizons are strange things. They look solid, they look final. But as you walk toward them, they move, they recede. What felt like the end becomes just another stretch of land beneath your feet. Could the speed of light be the same? A horizon that only seems untouchable because you are still too far away. You wonder what it would feel like to approach it, not to glance at it from a distance in numbers and thought experiments, but to truly edge closer. Imagine yourself inside a ship, quiet and sleek, slipping through the dark. At first you accelerate and it feels familiar, the way cars and planes and rockets once felt to those before you. But then, as the numbers climb, something begins to change. The stars shift, the colors stretch, time itself starts to drag. You don't just go faster, you enter a different kind of existence, one where the rules blur and your instincts can't keep up. That thought makes you pause. Maybe that's why this limit feels so different from the others. Maybe it isn't just a wall to smash through, but a transformation to endure. Because approaching light speed doesn't just test your machines, it tests the meaning of reality itself. And here lies the deeper ache of the question. It's not just about physics, it's about longing. You imagine the galaxy spread before you, worlds circling distant suns, mysteries hiding in every nebula. And you realize without light speed you may never touch them. Even the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, sits over 4 light years away. With today's technology, that's tens of thousands of years of travel. To even dream of seeing it in a single lifetime, you would need to dance with the very edge of light. So when you ask, is the speed of light really achievable, you are not just asking about equations. You are asking whether the universe meant to keep you bound to one small cradle of space. Whether you were born into a prison disguised as a cosmos. But the prison doesn't feel right, not when you look up, not when you let your mind trace the sheer size of the night sky. Infinity does not give birth to curiosity, only to cage it. Infinity does not unfold galaxies by the billions just to whisper, look but do not touch. And so doubt grows. Perhaps the physicists are right and the ceiling is real, but perhaps what you call impossible is simply incomplete. After all, history of science is not a history of perfection, it is a history of corrections, of shattered assumptions, of theories once thought absolute, later revealed to be only fragments. Once Newton's laws were final, then Einstein bent them. Now even Einstein may only be a doorway, not the destination. Who's to say the next leap won't redraw the line? You lean back into the thought and let it slow you. What is a law of physics, really? Is it a rule the universe wrote to cage itself, or is it only your best map so far, sketched with human hands, limited by human eyes? If every map is provisional, then maybe the speed of light is not an unbreakable wall, but a region of the map marked with the words, "Here be dragons." A warning not because it is truly impossible, but because it is not yet understood. And in that space of uncertainty, you feel something stir, a quiet hope wrapped in awe. If the wall is real, then perhaps the meaning of life is to explore everything within it, to savor the beauty of boundaries. But if the wall is only apparent, then the meaning may be far more daring, to press against it until it breaks, to fling yourself into realms so strange that even your language fails to describe them. You return to the original question, is the speed of light really achievable? And you realize that hidden inside it is another question. What kind of universe do you believe you live in? One where limits are absolute, or one where limits are invitation? No answer yet, only a silence, vast and expectant. The silence of a cosmos that never speaks in certainties but in challenges, in puzzles disguised as rules. And as you drift in that silence, you feel the pull of curiosity stronger than ever. You want to go closer. You want to ask not just why it is said to be impossible, but what truly happens as you begin to approach it. And that, you realize, is where the real story begins. So you sit with the question a little longer, letting it stretch inside you. Is the speed of light really achievable? The words feel simple, but they unfold like a labyrinth. To chase them is to find yourself walking through layer after layer of meaning, each corridor darker, stranger, more elusive than the last. At first, the path seems straightforward. You imagine technology improving, engines becoming more efficient, ships more powerful. Humanity has always solved problems with better machines, why not this one? But then you remember the stories, the physics lectures, the quiet certainty with which scientists tell you that no matter how hard you push, no matter how much energy you pour into the engines, you will never quite arrive. Never. The word stings. It's not like saying not yet, not like saying someday with patience. It's a verdict, final and cold. A verdict dressed up in numbers, equations, and unshakable evidence. But still you resist, because never has a strange way of eroding with time. The world has been full of never that didn't last. We'll never fly, we'll never break the sound barrier, we'll never go to the moon. Every one of those never has been broken, cracked open by persistence and imagination. And so you wonder, is this never truly different? Or is it just the latest story of human limitation waiting to be rewritten? The speed of light is not just a number, it is a mirror. When you gaze into it, you don't just see a barrier in physics, you see your own reflection, your own desire to transcend the ordinary. It forces you to ask whether progress has an edge, whether there really is a point where curiosity must surrender. And in that reflection, another question appears, subtle and haunting. If the universe built a wall here, did it do so to protect you or to taunt you? Imagine for a moment that the wall is real, that Einstein's equations are absolute, that the faster you travel, the more energy you need until the demand becomes infinite and the journey halts forever short of the mark. Imagine accepting that truth fully without resistance. What does it mean? It means the stars remain out of reach, not in your imagination, not in your telescopes, but in your body, in your lifetime. You may dream of Proxima Centauri, but you will never set foot there. You may imagine walking on the shores of a planet circling Vega or Betelgeuse, but those dreams will dissolve into nothing more than light through a telescope. The cosmos will stretch before you, but you will remain small, bound to your little corner, like a bird trapped in its cage staring at an endless sky. That is one picture, and yet another immediately rises up against it. A picture where impossibility is only the temporary face of ignorance. A picture where the universe does not forbid but waits, quietly daring you to discover the loophole. Because loopholes exist, nature is full of them. They hide in paradoxes, in contradictions, in the places where old rules strain under the weight of new questions. And when you imagine the speed of light as one of those places, the question shifts again. It is no longer can it be done, it becomes what would it take. So you begin to imagine. You imagine standing on a launch deck of the future, a ship sleek and silver resting in silence before you. The countdown hums through your bones, not seconds but years of effort, centuries of knowledge condensed into this one attempt. You are not only traveling, you are testing the edge of reality itself. As the engines flare, the ship trembles, and then slowly it begins its climb into the impossible. At first the numbers rise the way you expect. 1/10 the speed of light, then 1/5, half. The acceleration continues, steady and relentless, but then the strangeness begins. The stars ahead seem to shift, sliding closer together. Their light bends, stretching thin and blue. The space behind you, if you could turn, would redden dim, as if the past itself were falling away. Closer still, 9/10, 95%, 99. Each increment harder than the last, as if reality itself were resisting, as if the fabric of space-time were tightening around you. Time slows inside the ship, clocks tick differently, your body caught in a strange compromise between motion and stillness. You do not yet reach light speed, you cannot, but you feel its shadow, its gravity, the way it bends not just space but your very sense of being. It is no longer simply about travel, it is about transformation. Approaching the speed of light is not like running faster or even flying higher. It is like peeling away the layers of existence itself, like touching the raw machinery of time. And suddenly you see why this question matters so deeply. because it isn't just about escape or exploration or technology. It's about what kind of beings you are allowed to become. If you are creatures forever chained to slowness, then the universe is not a home but a painting, beautiful to look at but never to step into. If you are creatures who can someday touch light, then the universe is alive with possibility, an open invitation to transform not only your journey but your nature. You pause in this thought, letting its weight settle. The speed of light is not just a boundary, it is a philosophy. To declare it unreachable is to define the human condition as permanently small. To question it is to keep alive the possibility that you are not finished yet, that you have not yet reached the edge of what you might become. And as you linger on this thought, another realization rises. The story of light speed is not simply about future ships or faraway stars. It is about now. It is about how you live with limits, how you respond to the word impossible. Do you accept it quietly, folding your wings before they have fully grown? Or do you lean against it, testing, searching, asking again and again until the silence of the cosmos cracks open with something new? The speed of light, a number, a law, a challenge, a mirror. Is it achievable? You don't know yet, no one does. But you feel the question deepening, drawing you further in, as though the cosmos itself is whispering, "Come closer. Test me, see what happens when you approach." And so you step forward into that whisper, into the mystery that waits just beyond the edges of what you think you know. Because the story is only begin. The speed of light, you circle the thought again, as if walking slowly around a monument too vast to take in all at once. It is not just a speed, it is the speed, the number against which all others are measured. When a plane crosses the sky, its velocity is impressive only in relation to how tiny it seems beside light. When rockets leave Earth, burning and roaring, their triumph is softened by the reminder that they are still crawling compared to the photons already rushing ahead. Light has always outrun you. It slips past the sun, threads through the atmosphere, scatters across your eyes before you even realize it moved. To chase it feels almost comical, like trying to catch a shadow, like racing against time itself. And yet isn't that what curiosity demands? To chase the untouchable, not because you expect to win, but because the chase itself changes you. You wonder if that's the true gift of the question, not the promise of arriving, but the transformation that comes from pursuing what seems unreachable. Because to reach for the speed of light is not just to build faster ships, it is to reimagine what possible means. But still the number remains, 299,792 kilometers per second, a figure so exact, so definitive that it feels almost mocking. Not roughly 300,000, not a fuzzy approximation, but a razor-sharp boundary. Physics, with all its elegance, seems to have declared, here is the edge, you may dance close, but you may not cross. The absoluteness of it both fascinates and unsettles you, because absolutes are rare. Nature prefers gradients, compromises spectrums, cold fades to warmth, darkness to light, matter to energy. But here stands a cliff, abrupt and final. You can approach asymptotically, closer and closer, but never quite touch the summit. Why should the universe plant such a precise wall here? Why, among all the gentle curves of existence, is there this sudden line? You sit with that puzzle and let it weigh on you, because maybe the wall itself is not what it seems. Maybe it isn't a wall at all, maybe it's a threshold, a doorway disguised as a prohibition. After all, what happens to light at this speed? It doesn't break apart, it doesn't collapse, it thrives. Photons live at the speed of light, they are born into it, never knowing anything else. They do not crawl toward it, straining to accelerate, they simply exist there effortlessly. To them, this impossible boundary is not a prison, it is home. And that thought stirs something deeper. Perhaps the speed of light is not an impossible wall, it is a state of being, a transformation from one mode of existence to another. To cross it might not mean moving faster, it might mean becoming something else entirely. Not matter struggling against mass and time, but pure energy, pure motion, a shedding of what weighs you down. But then you catch yourself. Isn't that just a metaphor? Isn't that just the mind, desperate for hope, painting poetry onto physics? Maybe, and yet sometimes poetry is not a lie, it is a compass. Metaphors often point toward truths you don't yet have the language to measure. Perhaps imagining the speed of light as a doorway is not foolishness. Perhaps it is the seed of a question that someday grows into discovery. You close your eyes and imagine the view again. The ship accelerating, stars bending, colors stretching. You at the edge of comprehension. At near-light speeds, reality itself starts to look different. Distances contract, time warps. You see galaxies ahead that no one from Earth could ever see in a single lifetime. And yet, from the perspective of the universe outside your ship, your journey is still crawling, stretched into centuries. Two truths coexisting, each correct, each alien to the other. This paradox whispers to you. It suggests that the question, is the speed of light achievable, might be too simple, that it might hide more than it reveals, because perhaps the real mystery is not whether you can reach it, but what reaching it even means. Does it mean moving at that speed relative to the stars, or does it mean living in a reality where time itself no longer flows the same way? You realize that chasing light might not be about velocity at all, it might be about perspective. About entering a realm where the rules you take for granted collapse and are replaced by others. A realm where space shrinks, where moments stretch, where cause and effect bend until they blur. And in this moment of reflection, a quiet dread enters. What if the speed of light is not just unreachable, but unendurable? What if, even if you found a way to cross that boundary, you would cease to be what you are? What if to live at the speed of light means to dissolve your very identity, to abandon everything familiar in exchange for something so strange it can no longer be called human? The thought chills you, because in your heart, you are not only asking whether the speed of light can be achieved, you are asking whether you would survive the answer. And yet the dread does not silence you. Instead, it draws you further in, because fear, like curiosity, is a sign that something important lies ahead. Fear tells you the question is real, that it matters. The very fact that the thought unsettles you means you cannot ignore it. So you breathe slowly, letting the unease mix with wonder. Perhaps this is why the speed of light has held your imagination for so long. It is not just a number. It is a mirror of longing and fear, of desire and doubt. To ask about it is to ask about yourself, your limits, your courage, your willingness to change. The silence stretches, the stars wait. The question echoes again, is the speed of light really achievable? You do not answer, not yet, you cannot. But you feel the pull of the next step, to test the intuitions you cling to break apart the comfortable beliefs you carry about speed, about time, about reality. To let go of what feels obvious and discover that what you thought you knew about light and about yourself was only the surface of something stranger. You are not at the wall yet, but you are close enough to sense the cracks forming, and in those cracks, the real story begins to shine through. You think you know what speed is. It's simple enough, isn't it? You measure distance, you measure time, and you divide one by the other. Speed is the language of motion, the rhythm of travel. Cars glide down highways at 100 kilometers per hour. Trains rush faster. Jets scream through the air hundreds of meters every second. It feels intuitive, easy, almost natural. Faster just means covering more ground in less time. But intuition is a fragile thing, and when it meets the universe, it shatters. Because speed, real speed, is not just about distance and time. It's about how distance and time themselves warp under pressure. It's about how the fabric of reality twists when you demand too much from it. And nowhere does this become clearer than when you aim yourself toward the speed of light. Imagine a child watching a race. Two runners sprint down the track, one faster than the other. The child claps, cheers, points, and says, "That one will win." The intuition is correct. The one with greater speed covers the track more quickly. The logic is linear, predictable, but now imagine those runners aren't on a track but in space. Imagine one of them is moving so quickly that light itself seems to falter in comparison. Suddenly, the child's logic collapses. The faster runner is no longer simply winning. Time itself is running differently for them. The race isn't just about distance, it's about existence itself. And here lies the first fracture in intuition. The closer you get to light speed, the less sense everyday ideas of motion make. A train moving at half the speed of light does not simply go twice as fast as one moving at a quarter. A rocket at 99% does not simply cover ground more quickly than one at 98. At these speeds, time bends, space shrinks, and the universe begins to rewrite the rules you thought were unshakable. You may think of light speed as the ultimate sprint, the cosmic finish line, but it is not. It is a mirror that shows you how wrong your instincts are. Think of time, you've always assumed it to be steady, dependable. Seconds tick forward in rhythm, measured by clocks, mirrored by your heartbeat. You age, you move, the world changes, and time seems to flow the same for all. But the universe whispers a different truth. Time is not absolute, it bends under motion. The faster you move, the slower your clock ticks compared to those who stay behind. At walking pace, the difference is invisible. At airplane speed, still invisible. But as you approach the speed of light, the difference yawns open like a canyon. Imagine boarding a ship, accelerating closer and closer to light speed. For you inside, a year passes, you live it, feel it, breathe it. But when you return to Earth, you discover that decades or even centuries have passed for those you left behind. You did not cheat time, you did not stop it, but you lived inside a different rhythm, one carved by motion. Your intuition rebels at this. How could two people, two clocks, two realities disagree about something so basic as the flow of time? And yet they can, they do, experiments have proven it. Astronauts traveling in orbit return to Earth having aged slightly less than those who stayed, not enough to notice without precision instruments, but enough to prove that the fracture is real. Time is not steady, it is flexible, it is negotiable. Now think of space. You've always assumed it to be a backdrop, vast and unmoving. Distances are distances. A kilometer is a kilometer whether you crawl it or sprint it. But again, the universe offers correction. As you approach light speed, distances shrink in front of you. That star that seemed 4 light years away, to an observer back home, it is. But to you, hurtling close to light speed, the distance compresses, the journey shortens. What was once impossibly far becomes almost within reach, if only you can sustain the velocity. This shrinking of space is not a trick of the eye. It is the geometry of reality itself bending around your motion. Distances are not fixed. They depend on how you move. And that truth, too, cracks intuition wide open. Then there is mass. The closer you get to light speed, the heavier you become, not in the sense of gravity, not in the sense of scales, but in the sense of inertia, the resistance to acceleration. Each push forward requires more energy than the last. At 90% of light speed, the cost is enormous. At 99, astronomical. At 99.9, nearly infinite. It is as though the universe itself leans against you, pushing back harder and harder, saying, "This is not yours to take." And here, finally, your old intuition collapses completely, because you realize that the speed of light is not a number to be reached like a finish line. It is a horizon where space, time, and mass all conspire to deny you entry. It is not just a wall. It is a distortion field, a place where reality itself warps so violently that your common sense has no footing left. You sit with this realization and a strange silence follows. All your life you thought speed was simple, obvious, intuitive. But the truth is that speed is a kind of illusion. At ordinary scales it behaves like a well-trained servant obeying your expectations. But at cosmic scales, it reveals itself as a trickster bending time, compressing space, twisting identity. And so the question returns, sharper than before, is the speed of light really achievable? Because now you see what it would take, not just stronger engines or better fuel, not just new metals or clever engineering. To reach light speed, you would need to rewrite the very structure of time, space, and mass. You would need to find a way to slip through the cracks of reality's fabric, to bypass the resistance, to cheat the rules written into existence itself. And here is the broken intuition. Your mind, shaped by slow speeds and steady clocks, cannot grasp the true meaning of the question. To you it feels like running faster, driving harder, building bigger. But the universe smiles, patient and implacable, and whispers, "No, to touch light you must transform what you are." This realization unsettles you, because it suggests that the pursuit of light speed is not just a technological challenge, it is a philosophical one, a spiritual one even. It forces you to ask, what does it mean to be human in a universe that bends so easily against intuition? What does it mean to long for something that may require abandoning everything familiar about space, time, and body? You breathe slowly, letting the questions settle. You are no longer looking at the speed of light as a number on a page. You are looking at it as a mirror of strangeness, an invitation into a reality far beyond the reach of everyday thought. And you realize the story has only just begun to fracture. There are more assumptions waiting to be broken, more certainties to dissolve. You have stepped across the first crack in the floor of intuition, and already the ground trembles beneath your feet. The cosmos is waiting. You thought the first cracks in intuition were unsettling, time bending, distances shrinking, mass growing heavier. But those were only the surface. The deeper fractures are stranger still, stranger because they attack not just how you move, but how you perceive. At ordinary speeds, you trust your senses. If something happens at the same time, you believe that truth is universal. If you see two lights flicker together or two clocks tick in unison, you assume that everyone else everywhere would agree. Simultaneity feels absolute, as if time itself holds all events in one shared frame. But the universe disagrees. As you approach the speed of light, simultaneity unravels. What seems to happen at once, for you may unfold in sequence for someone else. Two sparks that leap together on Earth might, from the perspective of your near-light ship, occur one after the other. The order of reality itself changes with motion. This is not illusion, this is physics. Relativity says there is no universal now. Time slices itself differently depending on your speed, your frame of reference, your motion through space. And suddenly you realize the present is not shared, it is personal. Your now may not be mine, my now may not be yours. Your intuition resists this with all its strength. How could the order of events differ between observers? Surely there must be one true sequence, one master timeline, but there is. The universe does not keep a single clock. It keeps as many clocks as there are perspectives, each slicing reality differently, each declaring its own rhythm as correct. And here your trust in perception falters. Because if you cannot agree on, when things happen, what does it mean to say you live in the same universe at all? What does it mean to say reality is shared? You feel the floor tilt beneath you. Intuition wants a solid ground, a fixed stage. But the universe offers only a shifting play, a theater where time itself is relative. Then comes the next fracture, causality. At ordinary speeds, cause and effect feel sacred. Strike a match, then see the flame. Push a glass, then watch it fall. Events follow one another with clean precision, a chain of certainty. You live inside that rhythm so deeply that you rarely notice it, it simply is. But at the edge of light, the chain begins to stretch, twist, and blur. Signals limited by the speed of light delay themselves. Messages can no longer outrun distance. You try to warn, to act, to reach, but the information crawls compared to the scale you now occupy. A disaster on one side of a starship may not be known on the other until it is already too late. Cause and effect smear apart, tangled in the finite slowness of light's journey. And in certain thought experiments, in the wild mathematics of relativity, causality itself seems to threaten collapse. The question arises, could events switch order entirely depending on who observes them? Could one person's cause be another person's effect? Could reality itself weave different stories for different witnesses with no single truth to reconcile them? Your breath catches at the thought, because if cause and effect can bend, then what is left of the universe you thought you knew? You close your eyes and imagine again the ship racing forward, stars stretched into arcs of light. From your perspective, the journey is possible, continuous, alive. But from another perspective, perhaps an observer left behind, the same journey might appear fragmented, distorted, time flowing differently, space contracting in ways that defy shared logic. Whose story is true? The answer is disquieting. Both are. There is no master story, no privileged view. Reality is not a single tale. It is a library of tales, each written by motion, each valid, each incomplete. And here you encounter the greatest fracture of all, the realization that your own intuition, so carefully shaped by the slowness of human life, is profoundly provincial. Your mind evolved to survive in a world where speeds are small, where light's travel is instant for practical purposes, where simultaneity feels shared, where cause and effect never blur. That world gave you instincts, but those instincts are local truths, not universal ones. At the edge of light, those instincts betray you. It is like trying to navigate the ocean with rules written only for ponds. They worked once for the small scale, but the cosmos is not a pond. The cosmos is an ocean so vast that your maps crumble at its edges. You open your eyes and feel the strangeness seep deeper. What does it mean to live in a universe where time has no single rhythm, where simultaneity is broken, where distance itself contracts, where cause and effect can blur? It means that your longing for light speed is not just a longing for travel, it is a longing to escape the limitations of your very perception. To approach light is not just to move quickly, It is to break the anchor of common sense, to enter a domain where thought itself must be remade. And so the question grows sharper. Is the speed of light really achievable? Because now you see what achievable would demand. It would not mean simply building a ship stronger than rockets, more advanced than engines. It would mean reshaping your mind to live in a world without universal time, without fixed distances, without shared cause. It would mean becoming something unrecognizable to the creature who first looked up at the stars and wondered. The silence of the cosmos deepens. Perhaps this is why the laws are so strict, so stubborn, so unyielding. Not because the universe wishes to cage you, but because it knows you are not ready. Because to live at the speed of light is to dissolve your very sense of reality, and maybe dissolve yourself. You breathe slowly, letting the paradox settle like mist. Everyday intuition is gone now, shattered, scattered. The familiar ground of space and time is no longer beneath your feet. You are floating in strangeness, held only by the quiet rhythm of possibility. And yet this is not despair, it is wonder. Because broken intuition is not the end, it is the beginning. Each fracture is an opening, each paradox an invitation. When old instincts collapse, new questions emerge. And it is in those questions that the story of discovery lives. So you step further, unsteady but curious, into the wilderness beyond common sense. And as you do, the question lingers, luminous and unresolved. If light can live there, why not you? The universe does not answer, it never does. But in its silence, you hear the faint hum of a deeper truth beginning to awake. You stand now in a landscape where intuition has shattered. Time is no longer steady, distance is no longer fixed. Simultaneity has dissolved, cause and effect blur at the edges. The world you thought you knew, the quiet rhythm of clocks, the solid certainty of space, the clean chain of cause lies broken around you. At first the fragments feel unsettling, like shards of glass underfoot, but slowly as your eyes adjust you begin to see something else. The broken pieces catch light, they glitter, they suggest not ruin but a new shape waiting to be assembled. Because relativity does not just tear intuition apart, it builds something stranger, something subtler, something more profound in its place. You remember the first time you saw a map of the Earth stretched into a rectangle, continents warped and swollen in odd proportions. It looked wrong, Africa too small, Greenland too large, but then you learned why. The sphere of the planet could not be flattened without distortion. The map was not lying, it was translating. It was showing you one perspective of a truth too complex to be captured in any single form. Relativity is like that map. It does not say your instincts are meaningless. It says they are local, partial, stretched into distortions when carried too far. The truth is larger than intuition, just as the earth is larger than a flat sheet of paper. So what, then, is the larger truth? It begins with a simple statement, as clear and unyielding as stone. The speed of light is the same for all observers. Whether you are racing toward it, fleeing from it, or standing still, the number does not change. It is constant, unwavering, woven into the fabric of reality. At first glance, this seems impossible. Common sense insists otherwise. If you run toward a moving train, its speed relative to you should increase. If you run away, its speed should decrease. Why should light be any different? Why should it refuse to bend to relativity the way every other motion does? But experiment after experiment confirms it. No matter how you move, no matter how you measure, the speed of light remains fixed. It is the one universal constant in a universe otherwise full of shifting frames. And here lies the paradox. To preserve this constancy, reality itself must bend, time must stretch or contract, space must expand or shrink, cause must tilt, simultaneity must dissolve. All of the fractures in intuition are not accidents, they are consequences. They are the price the universe pays to keep light speed sacred. You let this sink in, slowly, carefully. It is not that the world behaves strangely by accident. It is that the world must behave strangely to protect this one law. Everything that feels bizarre, the slowing of time, the contraction of space, the relativity of order, is the ripple effect of one simple truth: light does not change its pace. You realize then that the speed of light is not just a number, it is the foundation of reality's geometry. the metronome to which the cosmos keeps time, the scaffold on which existence hangs. Without it, the structure collapses. With it, everything else makes sense, however counterintuitive. This is where your intuition must die so that a deeper intuition can grow. A new kind of thinking, one not built from daily life but from cosmic necessity. And yet, even as you accept this, the strangeness deepens. Because if the speed of light is sacred, if it is a law written into the bones of existence, then to ask, is it achievable, becomes even heavier. It is not just asking about velocity, it is asking whether you can pierce the very scaffold of reality itself. Can you stand on the beams without collapsing the structure? Can you move in a way the cosmos itself does not permit? The answer seems obvious. No, not because of engines or technology, but because of logic itself. To move at the speed of light as a massive being is to demand that time stop, that distances collapse to zero, that causality surrender entirely. It is to demand to exist in the same state as photons, beings without rest, without mass, without time. To ask if you can achieve light speed is to ask if you can become light. And here your intuition flares up again, not in protest this time, but in longing. Because what is light if not the purest symbol of freedom? It moves effortlessly where you cannot. It links the stars in a cosmic web, carrying whispers of galaxies billions of years away. It touches the ancient and the immediate in a single instant. To be light would be to be everywhere, timeless, unbound. The thought is intoxicating. Perhaps that is why the question haunts you, not because you want to build faster ships, but because you want to be unshackled. To escape the slow crawl of time, the endless distances of space, the weight of mass. To achieve light speed would not just be to travel differently, it would be to exist differently. And yet reality pushes back. It tells you you cannot, not as you are, not with your weight, your body, your matter. The equations do not lie. They have held for over a century, tested, retested, unbroken. You are bound to sublight, always close, never there. But in the quiet of this thought you feel a flicker of doubt. After all, haven't you been here before? Haven't you been told impossible only to later discover it was a word too small for what reality allowed? Flight, electricity, space travel, splitting the atom, each once dismissed, each later achieved. So which is this, a true wall unbroken forever, or just another horizon receding as you step forward? The question loops, unresolved, echoing louder than before. And in that echo, you realize why intuition must be broken, because only when the old certainties collapse can you see the possibility of something new. The speed of light is not just a limit, it is a crucible. It forces you to let go of the comfortable, to surrender the obvious, to strip down to the raw fabric of reality. Only then, perhaps, can you glimpse whether there is a hidden path through, a doorway invisible to ordinary eyes. And so you stand at the edge of broken intuition, looking back at the ruins of your old beliefs and forward at the abyss of possibility. The air is still, the stars wait. You do not yet know the answer, but you are ready now to ask the question differently. Not is the speed of light achievable, but what does it mean to try? The story turns here, shifting from the collapse of the obvious to the slow construction of evidence, of reason, of possibility. The fragments are ready to be assembled into something new. And so you step forward into the evidence stack. When intuition falls apart, you are left with two choices. You can retreat, clinging to the comfort of common sense, insisting that reality must be simple because it feels simple. Or you can step forward into the wilderness of strangeness, guided not by instinct but by evidence. And this is where the story of light speed becomes even more fascinating, because the universe, unlike intuition, does not lie. It leaves traces, clues, experiments. It whispers in patterns that repeat again and again. If you listen carefully, you begin to hear the truth beneath the strangeness. So let's listen. The first whisper came in the 19th century, from an experiment so quiet, so simple, and yet so devastating to ordinary thinking that it changed everything. Two men, Michelson and Morley, built a device to measure the speed of light from different directions. At the time, people believed light must travel through some invisible medium, like sound through air, like ripples through water. They called it the luminiferous ether. If the Earth moved through this ether, Light should appear faster in some directions and slower in others, the way wind affects the sound of a moving car horn. But no matter how Michelson and Morley measured, the result was always the same. Light speed did not change. It was constant, indifferent to the Earth's motion, indifferent to direction, indifferent to everything. The ether was gone, the old intuition gone with it. That was the first fracture confirmed not just by theory, but by experiment. The universe was speaking clearly. Light does not behave like ordinary waves or objects. It is something else. Then came Einstein. In 1905, he took the constant speed of light and built a theory around it, not as an accident, not as a glitch, but as the foundation, special relativity. From that one axiom, light speed is constant for all observers, he derived all the strange consequences, time dilation, length contraction, the relativity of simultaneity. He showed that the bizarre was not bizarre at all, it was necessity, it was geometry. And over the next century, evidence piled up like bricks in a cathedral. Muons, ghostly particles born in the upper atmosphere, provided one of the clearest proofs. At rest, these particles decay in microseconds. They should never reach the Earth's surface. Their lifetime is too short, and yet when moving close to light speed, they live longer. Their clocks tick more slowly. They rain down on detectors at ground level, proof that time itself dilates in motion. Clocks flown on airplanes confirm it too. Tiny differences measured with atomic precision show that moving clocks tick more slowly than stationary ones. GPS satellites circling the Earth must constantly correct for both special and general relativity, time dilation from their speed and from the weaker gravity above Earth's surface. Without those corrections, GPS would fail within hours, directions drifting into uselessness. The evidence is not abstract, it is woven into technology you use every day. The phone in your hand, the navigation in your car, the timing of global communications, all of it whispers the same truth. Time bends, light holds constant. The equations speak too. E equals mc2, perhaps the most famous of them all, is not just a slogan. It is the natural consequence of treating the speed of light as fundamental. It says that mass and energy are not separate things, but two faces of the same coin, convertible, transformable, linked forever by that sacred constant. Every nuclear reactor, every burst of fusion in the heart of a star, every atom bomb that has scarred the Earth, each is a brutal reminder of the truth behind the equation. Light speed is not just about travel, it is about the structure of existence itself. And then there is the cosmos, distant galaxies, their light stretched into red by the expansion of space. Black holes, their gravity so strong that even light cannot escape. Neutron stars, their beams sweeping like lighthouses, their timing distorted by relativistic motion. Everywhere you look in the universe, the same pattern emerges, the speed of light as boundary, as ruler, as rhythm. You lean back into this evidence, and for the first time the strangeness feels steady. It is no longer just a breaking of intuition, it is a building of trust. You do not have to believe in relativity because it is elegant, or because Einstein was a genius, or because it feels dramatic. You believe because the world itself insists on it, in experiment after experiment, in observation after observation, in machine after machine. And yet, as reassuring as the evidence is, it does not make the question disappear. It sharpens it, because if all of this is true, if light speed is constant, if time and space bend to preserve it, if the universe itself is built on it, then the barrier is not just practical, it is woven into reality's bones. To achieve light speed would not just be to overcome engineering hurdles, it would be to demand the impossible from the universe itself: infinite energy, zero time, collapsed distance. Every piece of evidence you've gathered whispers the same warning: you cannot cross this line. And yet evidence is not destiny. History is full of truths that seemed absolute until they weren't. Newton's laws ruled for centuries, unbroken until Einstein stretched them. Maybe relativity itself is only a chapter, not the whole book. Maybe the constancy of light speed is not the end, but the beginning of something even stranger. The evidence is overwhelming, but evidence is also evolving. Each new experiment sharpens the edges, each new observation reveals new cracks. The Large Hadron Collider smashes particles close to light speed, probing the limits of matter. Telescopes capture light from galaxies billions of years old, testing constancy across the universe's history. The data continues to confirm relativity, but it also hints at mysteries beyond it: dark energy, dark matter, quantum entanglement. Realities where light speed may not be the final word, but only one voice in a deeper chorus. You let this sit with you, heavy and luminous. The evidence stack is clear. Relativity is real, light speed is constant, the barrier is firm. And yet the very act of stacking evidence reminds you of a larger truth: that science is never finished. Every law is provisional, every certainty is temporary. The wall of evidence stands tall, but perhaps it too is only a horizon. So the question persists, sharper, deeper, more haunting. Is the speed of light really achievable? Not in the sense of today's machines or even tomorrow's, but in the sense of forever, in the sense of ultimate possibility. The universe has told you, here is the limit, and humanity has always answered, limits are invitations. You feel the pull of that old defiance again, but now it is steadied by evidence, shaped by proof. The strangeness is no longer dreamlike, it is real, grounded, tested, and yet it still points beyond itself. Perhaps you think the barrier of light is not a wall to be smashed, but a clue to be understood. Perhaps the evidence is not just telling you no, but whispering a riddle. And in that riddle, the story deepens. Evidence is a peculiar thing. It doesn't care about feelings. It doesn't bend to intuition. It simply sits there, stubborn, waiting to be noticed. And the evidence for the speed of light being a sacred boundary has grown into something massive, almost cathedral-like. You can walk through it aisle after aisle, each experiment a stained glass window, each observation a pillar, each theory a roof beam holding the whole strange architecture together. But cathedrals are never built all at once. They rise brick by brick, proof by proof, and the deeper you step inside, the more you realize just how much of reality has already been carved around this single constant. You start at the smallest scale, particles. The universe is littered with them, invisible specks colliding and decaying, living fleeting lives shorter than a breath. Most decay quickly, fractions of a second, too brief even for thought. Yet when they are accelerated near the speed of light, their clocks slow. Their fleeting lives stretch, extended by time dilation. Muons born high in the atmosphere from cosmic rays survive long enough to reach the Earth's surface only because their near-light motion warps time for them. Without relativity, they would vanish long before hitting detectors. But they don't. They arrive, thousands of them every second, carrying in their very existence the proof that time bends at speed. It's not theory, it's not math scribbled on a blackboard. It's showers of particles raining down on the Earth, proof written in radiation, relentless and undeniable. You move to the laboratory. In massive accelerators, machines like the Large Hadron Collider, scientists hurl particles to within a whisper of light speed. Again, the same truth emerges. The faster they go, the more resistant they become to further acceleration. Energy poured in doesn't linearly increase velocity, it bends into mass, inertia, resistance. No matter how violently you push, the speed creeps closer to light but never crosses. Always an approach, never an arrival. The numbers climb into absurd magnitudes, billions of electron volts poured into a single particle, and still the barrier holds. The lab confirms what the cosmos already told you. Light speed is the asymptote, the unreachable edge. But evidence doesn't stop at the small. It stretches across the sky. Consider starlight. Some of the photons reaching your eyes tonight began their journey millions of years ago, some billions. They have crossed gulfs of expanding space, weaving through dust, bending around stars, threading through the invisible pull of galaxies. And through it all they remain faithful to their speed. Across time, across distance, across conditions unimaginable, they do not falter. Not once has a photon been caught arriving too fast or too slow. Not once has light betrayed its law. It is as constant in the silence of interstellar void as it is in the lens of a backyard telescope. And yet even here strangeness creeps in, because when you watch distant galaxies, their light stretched into red as the universe expands, you begin to sense that light is not just constant, it is fundamental. It is the ruler against which expansion itself is measured. Without the constancy of light, cosmology collapses. The very notion of a universe expanding, of galaxies fleeing one another, relies on light as the measuring stick. Without it, distance and time become meaningless. So the evidence is not just experimental, It is existential. To doubt the speed of light is to doubt the structure of the cosmos itself. But the universe is never content with simplicity. Even as the evidence stacks higher, cracks begin to appear not in relativity itself, but at its borders, where quantum mechanics whispers contradictions. You turn your gaze to the quantum world, where particles flicker in and out of existence, where entanglement ties distant objects together instantly, faster than light could ever travel. Here, a different kind of evidence begins to unsettle the neat cathedral of relativity, not by breaking it, but by suggesting there may be flaws beneath it, hidden chambers deeper still. Quantum entanglement is one such chamber. Two particles born together remain linked no matter how far they drift apart. Measure one and the other responds instantly, faster than light, outside of time. Einstein himself called it spooky action at a distance, unsettled by its defiance. And yet experiment after experiment has confirmed it. Entanglement is real. But does it transmit information? No, that is the loophole. Entanglement bends your intuition, makes you think signals are flying faster than light, but in truth it carries no usable message. It is correlation without communication. The universe teases you with faster-than-light echoes, but then closes the door before you can pass through. Relativity stands firm, even as quantum physics suggests a stranger reality beneath it. Then there is tunneling. Particles sometimes leap across barriers they have no right to cross, appearing on the other side without traversing the space in between. The process seems instantaneous, faster than light, but again the loophole closes. The effect cannot be harnessed for information transfer. It is a quantum quirk, a ripple of probability, not a violation of relativity's law. The evidence grows paradoxical. Relativity absolute, quantum mechanics rebellious. Both true, both confirmed, both irreconcilable. You find yourself standing between them, a witness to a universe that is consistent in its contradictions. And in that tension, the question deepens again. Is the speed of light really achievable? Because now you see it is not simply a matter of engineering or energy. It is not only the equations of relativity, but the clash between the two great pillars of modern physics. Relativity insists the barrier is absolute. Quantum mechanics hints at realities where speed may not even mean the same thing. Evidence piles up on both sides, and yet no bridge has been built to join them. You sit with this conflict, letting its strangeness seep in. Perhaps the limit of light speed is not the end, but a clue. Perhaps the universe is not saying you cannot, but you do not yet understand. And as you drift in this thought, the evidence feels less like a wall and more like a puzzle. Each experiment a piece, each paradox a corner. The picture is unfinished, but its outlines suggest something larger, something stranger, something waiting. The cathedral of light is solid, immense, undeniable, and yet like every cathedral it is incomplete. The spires are missing. The foundations may hide deeper vaults. What stands is beautiful but not final. So you return again to the whisper, the question that has haunted you since the beginning. Is the speed of light really achievable? You do not know, not yet, but the evidence has carried you far enough to see that the story is not simple. The wall is real, but reality itself may not be finished. And that realization, quiet, unsettling, luminous, is its own kind of hope. The evidence does not end with particles, with laboratories, with quantum puzzles. It stretches into the sky, into the silence of the cosmos, because the speed of light is not just a limit for motion. It is the very thread that defines what you can see, what you can know, what you can even imagine. Look up at the night sky. Every star is a memory. The light that enters your eyes tonight left those suns years, centuries, even millennia ago. The farther you gaze, the older the light becomes. Galaxies shimmer from millions of years in the past. Quasars flicker from billions. The edge of the observable universe glows with light that has traveled for over 13 billion years, carrying whispers of the cosmos as it was when it was young. You do not see the universe as it is. You see it as it was, filtered through the finite speed of light. Every glance upward is a journey backward in time. Every photon is a messenger from the past. The universe you inhabit is stitched together by delays, layers of memory written in starlight. And already you feel the strange weight of this truth. The speed of light is not just a ceiling. It is a horizon. It limits not only how fast you can travel, but how much of the universe you can ever witness. Even if you never leave Earth, the barrier rules your vision. There are regions of the cosmos forever hidden, not because they do not exist, but because their light has not yet arrived. Space is expanding faster than light can close the distance, pushing galaxies away so swiftly that their signals will never reach you. Whole swathes of reality drift beyond your possible knowledge. They are gone, not gone in being, but gone from your reach, erased from your experience by the tyranny of that one constant. And then there are black holes, the most dramatic monuments to light speed. A black hole is not merely a collapsed star. It is a geometry, a knot in spacetime so severe that even light cannot escape. At the event horizon, the boundary around it, the escape velocity equals the speed of light. Nothing faster exists, and so nothing escapes, not light, not matter, not information. The horizon is absolute, a prison wall drawn by light's own limit. You picture standing at the edge. To you, hovering safely outside, time seems to slow for anything falling in. A spaceship plunging toward the horizon appears to freeze, stretching into red, fading into darkness. But from the perspective of the ship itself, time flows normally, the fall continues, and the horizon is crossed in silence. Two truths, each correct, each irreconcilable, all governed by the speed of light. The very existence of black holes is evidence of light's role as the final arbiter. They are not curiosities. They are structures built entirely from the constancy of C. They are reminders, etched into the fabric of the cosmos, that light's limit is not negotiable. But black holes also raise questions. If nothing can escape, where does the information go? Hawking radiation suggests slow evaporation, but the paradox remains. How does a universe reconcile quantum mechanics with the brutal certainty of the horizon? Again, you find yourself in that uneasy space where relativity and quantum physics whisper different truths. The evidence confirms the barrier, but the barrier itself creates puzzles so deep they may hold the key to a new understanding. Then comes gravitational lensing, light bent not by glass but by mass. When a massive object like a star or a galaxy sits between you and something more distant, the light curves around it. Space itself bends and light follows the bend. Scopes record arcs of galaxies distorted into halos, proof that spacetime is not flat but warped. Proof that light always travels at the same speed, but the path it takes is pliable, stretched and curved by gravity. These cosmic illusions are not trivial. They are evidence carved across billions of light years, evidence that the constant speed of light interacts with gravity to paint the universe itself. The lensing is not only predicted by relativity, it is demanded by it. Einstein's equations, strange as they seemed at first, keep proving themselves in the most dramatic theater of all, the night sky. And so, piece by piece, the evidence becomes overwhelming. From the quantum rain of muons, to the particle accelerators on Earth, to the redshift of galaxies, to the bending of light around black holes, the same truth emerges. The speed of light is more than a number. It is the architecture of reality. But as the evidence stacks, so does the unease. Because the more solid the wall seems, the more urgent the question becomes, what lies beyond it? If the speed of light is the ruler of visibility, the architect of horizons, then what does it mean to live in a universe so carefully fenced? Why should the cosmos design itself this way, teasing you with infinity, then locking it behind a boundary you cannot cross? And deeper still, how much of reality have you already lost to that boundary? How much exists beyond the visible horizon, beyond the light that has reached you, beyond the part of the universe you can ever know? These are not poetic musings. They are real scientific boundaries calculated and mapped. Cosmologists call it the observable universe, the portion you can see because its light has had time to arrive. Beyond it, the unobservable, not smaller, not emptier, simply hidden. And again, the speed of light is the jailer. It dictates what can enter your awareness and what must remain forever beyond it. The evidence grows so heavy it almost crushes you. This is not just theory, it is structure. Light speed is not an incidental number. It is the thread weaving time, distance, causality, and perception. It is the scaffold on which every observation stands. And yet, as you sit in that weight, the question still breathes. Is the speed of light really achievable? Because evidence, for all its power, is never final. It is provisional. It points, it shapes, it convinces, but it does not close the door. The very fact that light speed defines horizons and black holes and cosmic boundaries means it is central, yes, but also perhaps incomplete. Every time physics has crowned a law absolute, a deeper law has waited underneath. So you look again at the evidence not as a wall, but as a riddle. The constancy of light, the bending of time, the warping of space, the paradoxes of horizons, all of it might not just be prohibition. It might be invitation. The invitation is not loud, it is not obvious, but it is there. In the silence of cosmic light, in the stubbornness of particles, in the whispers of quantum strangeness. A quiet dare, look deeper. And as you sit with that dare, the evidence no longer feels like a cathedral. It feels like scaffolding. A structure that is solid now but temporary. A framework for something greater not yet built. The story, you realize, is far from over. The evidence has taken you from laboratories to the farthest edges of the cosmos. It has bent your sense of time, shrunk your sense of space, and etched the speed of light into every layer of existence. The picture seems complete, light speed as the law, the ruler, the wall. But if science has taught you anything, it is this: every complete picture eventually cracks, not because it was false, but because it was partial. Every law that seemed final turned out to be a chapter, not the whole book. And as you stand here at the summit of the evidence stack, you begin to see the cracks forming again, faint, subtle, but undeniable. They appear first in the darkness. Look at the night sky, at galaxies stretched across billions of light years. They spin faster than they should. The stars orbit at speeds that defy the visible mass, as if something unseen is holding them together. That unseen something is called dark matter. It does not glow, does not reflect, does not shine, but its gravity shapes galaxies and clusters. Without it, the universe would fly apart. But what is it? No one knows. Billions of particles may be rushing through you right now, undetectable. Dark matter obeys gravity, but beyond that it refuses to reveal itself. And here's the fracture. If 95% of the universe is dark matter and dark energy together, then all your evidence, all your laws, all your equations are built on the thin sliver of reality you can see. And what if the unseen does not obey the same rules? What if the limit of light speed, so absolute in the visible world, is only a local truth, a surface truth? What if in the deeper ocean of dark reality, other currents move faster, stranger, freer? It is not proof, it is not even a theory, but it is a crack, a reminder that what you know is dwarfed by what you don't. Then comes dark energy, the force that drives the universe's expansion to accelerate. Galaxies are not just drifting apart, they are racing away faster and faster, as if pushed by an invisible hand. The farther they are, the faster they go, until some cross the horizon of possibility, receding faster than light itself. At first, this seems like a violation, but it is. The galaxies are not moving through space faster than light, they are carried with space as it expands. The law of relativity remains intact, and yet the effect is the same. Vast regions of the universe slide beyond reach forever, light speed not as a highway but as a retreating shoreline. Again the crack appears. The law holds, but it holds in ways so strange, so counterintuitive, that you wonder if it is the whole story. The cracks widen at the quantum scale. Here the vacuum is not empty but alive, seething with virtual particles that flicker into and out of existence. Fields underlie everything, fields of force, fields of probability. And these fields ripple, interact, give rise to particles that dart about, bound always by the speed of light. Except what about the entangled pairs, whispering faster than light across impossible distances? What about tunneling, where particles appear beyond barriers without crossing them? What about quantum fluctuations, where uncertainty itself seems to stretch beyond the neat limits of relativity? Each time the answer is the same: no usable information moves faster than light. Relativity survives, but the questions linger. Why does the universe allow these flirtations with impossibility, these hints of faster-than-light shadows, but then shut the door at the last instant? Why dangle the dream only to withdraw it? It feels almost theatrical, as if reality is saying, there is more but not yet for you. You lean into string theory for comfort, but find only more strangeness. Strings vibrating in hidden dimensions, brains colliding, universes stacked like pages in a book. Here the speed of light is still present, still central, still written into the equations, but the landscape is vaster, weirder, layered with possibilities you can barely imagine. If dimensions beyond the visible exist, could they hold pathways where light speed is not the final word? A speculation, yes, but speculation is often the first step toward discovery. You turn to experiments again. Neutrinos, those ghostly particles once hinted at faster than light speeds in the opera experiment. For a brief, electrifying moment, the scientific world shook. Was the impossible possible? Was the wall cracking? But it was error, faulty cables, miscalibrated instruments. Light speed stood firm, unbroken, and yet the memory lingers. The hunger for cracks, for exceptions, is real. And then gravitational waves. Ripples in spacetime born from the collision of black holes sweeping across the cosmos at the speed of light, detected not in photons but in the trembling of space itself. Another layer of evidence, another confirmation that light speed is not just about light, it is about spacetime itself. And yet the very existence of such waves hints at deeper structures, deeper fabrics, where perhaps new rules may someday be written. Everywhere you look, the evidence stacks higher. Relativity confirmed again and again. Light speed constant, sacred, absolute. And yet everywhere you look too are puzzles. Dark matter, dark energy, entanglement, string theory, the quantum vacuum. Hints that the picture is not complete, that the wall may not be final, that beyond the evidence lies something stranger. And so the paradox deepens. You are left with two truths. The speed of light is the most tested, confirmed, unbroken law in physics. The universe is vast, dark, and unfinished, and every law you have ever called final has one day fallen. Where does that leave you? Back at the question, is the speed of light really achievable? The evidence says no. Every test, every observation, every experiment whispers the same denial. But the cracks say maybe, not now, not here, not with what you are, but maybe in ways you cannot yet imagine. Maybe in frameworks not yet written, in equations not yet found, in horizons not yet reached. The cathedral of evidence is solid, but cathedrals are built to inspire, not to end thought. They are doorways to wonder, not prisons. And as you stand inside this one, surrounded by the echoes of experiments and the silence of starlight, you realize the question is not about reaching light speed. It is about never stopping at the wall. The evidence is clear, the evidence is beautiful, the evidence is incomplete. And from that incompleteness, the story turns again, toward defiance, toward counter-arguments, toward the daring human refusal to accept impossible as the final word. The evidence stack is built, now the counter case waits. The evidence is heavy, it stacks around you like stone, undeniable, immovable. Every test confirms it, every observation echoes it. The speed of light is the limit, the ceiling, the final wall. But if you've learned anything from history, it is this: humans do not stop at walls. When you were told you could not fly, you looked at birds and built wings. When you were told you could not leave the earth, you built rockets and left anyway. When you were told diseases were divine punishments, you invented microscopes and medicine. Every impossible in history has sooner or later been dragged into the realm of the possible, rewritten by stubbornness, by imagination, by the refusal to accept limits as final. So when the universe says, here, this far, no further, you can almost hear the old defiance rising. A quiet whisper, stubborn and unyielding, what if? Because maybe the question is not whether the speed of light can be achieved directly. Maybe the question is whether the rules can be bent, skirted, sidestepped. Maybe the wall is real, but there are doorways hidden in its cracks. Already, you imagine them. The first doorway is warp. Not warp in the sense of science fiction's glowing tunnels and streaking stars, but warp in the literal sense, bending space itself. If you cannot move through space faster than light, perhaps you can move space around you. Compress the distance ahead, expand the distance behind, and let the bubble of space-time carry you forward. To an outside observer, you travel faster than light. To yourself, you never exceed the limit. This is the Alcubierre drive, born not from fantasy but from equations of general relativity. A theoretical solution, elegant in math if brutal in energy requirements. It demands negative energy, exotic matter, quantities of power that make stars look like batteries. Impossible with what you have now, but not forbidden by the equations. A loophole whispered into existence by the very laws that once said no. The second doorway is wormholes, bridges through space-time, shortcuts connecting distant points, not traveling faster than light but arriving sooner than light would by taking the long way around, a tunnel carved through the fabric of reality, collapsing distance not by speed but by geometry. Wormholes too live in the math. General relativity allows them at least as solutions. Stable, traversable wormholes may require exotic matter as well, may demand conditions you cannot yet create, but the fact that they are possible in theory is enough to keep the dream alive. They are cracks in the wall, glimmers of hope that may be impossible is just a word for not yet. Then comes quantum speculation. Entanglement already hints at connections faster than light, relations instant across vast distances. You cannot yet use it for communication, cannot yet send information through it. But what if that is only because you don't understand it fully? What if a future physics, one that unites quantum mechanics with relativity, finds a way to use these invisible threads as highways? Already researchers explore quantum teleportation, not of matter itself but of states, information about particles transmitted instantly across distance. For now it is limited, fragile, incomplete, but so was electricity once, so was flight. Every great technology begins as a fragile experiment, easy to dismiss, easy to doubt, and yet over time fragility becomes foundation. The countercase is not naive optimism, it is not the denial of evidence. It is the recognition that evidence is always provisional, always a map, never the territory. Relativity is tested, yes. The speed of light is sacred, yes. But every law you hold sacred was once thought unbreakable, and every one of them sooner or later was broken, bent, rewritten into a deeper law. You remember Newton. His laws ruled the universe for centuries, elegant and unchallenged. They described planets, projectiles, tides. They were absolute until they weren't. Einstein bent them, showed they were approximations, local truths within a wider framework. Newton was not wrong, but he was incomplete. What if Einstein is the same, not wrong but unfinished? What if the constancy of light is a local truth inside a larger structure not yet revealed? This is not idle speculation. Physicists search for such frameworks: string theory, loop quantum gravity, emergent spacetime, each an attempt to weave relativity and quantum mechanics into a single tapestry. Each a reminder that even the most tested laws may turn out to be fragments, and if relativity is only a chapter, then the speed of light may not be the final word. You breathe slowly, letting this defiance settle. It is not loud, not brash. It is quiet, contemplative, because to resist the wall is not to deny its existence, it is to imagine what might lie beyond it. Consider again the image of light itself. Photons live at the speed of light. They do not struggle toward it, they are born there. To them time does not pass, distance does not stretch. They exist in a state you cannot imagine, timeless, weightless, eternal in motion. Perhaps to achieve light speed is not to accelerate harder but to transform. Not to push matter to the impossible but to shed matter entirely. To become energy, to live as light lives. What does that mean? It is not yet clear. But the thought itself is enough to stir you, because it reframes the question. It suggests that achieving light speed might not mean racing against photons, but finding a way to exist like them. And suddenly, the wall feels less like a prohibition and more like an invitation, less like a cage and more like a clue. The evidence is still there, the barrier is still absolute, but imagination whispers, perhaps absolutes are only beginnings. Perhaps impossibility is not an end, but a horizon waiting to be redrawn. And so the countercase grows, not by dismissing the wall, but by walking along it, pressing against it, searching for cracks, warp drives, wormholes, quantum entanglement, transformations of matter into energy, all speculative, all fragile, all incomplete, but each one a refusal to accept never as final. The story of light speed is not just a scientific question. It is a test of imagination. Do you stop at the wall, satisfied with the evidence, or do you lean against it, whispering, what if? The answer perhaps is both. You respect the evidence, you honor the wall, but you also keep searching. Because the day you stop searching is the day the story ends, and the universe, infinite and strange, does not feel like a place that wants its story to end. So you hold the question open, alive, breathing. Is the speed of light really achievable? And in holding it open, you feel something shift. The wall is still there, but it no longer feels absolute. It feels like a challenge, like a puzzle, like a horizon. The counter case has begun. The counter case grows louder the more you sit with it. Not because the evidence weakens, it doesn't. Relativity still stands solid and unshaken. The constancy of light still defines the scaffold of reality, but because imagination refuses silence, it presses at the edges, restless, insistent. It reminds you that the laws of physics have always been rewritten, not by those content with answers, but by those who dared to ask new questions. And so you turn to the stranger possibilities, the theories that live at the borders, whispered not as certainty but as speculation, sparks against the dark wall of the impossible. The first whisper is tachyons, particles that by definition move faster than light. Not slower, not equal, always faster. They have never been observed. Their existence remains hypothetical, a mathematical ghost rather than an experimental fact. And yet in equations they slip naturally into place like shadows cast by light itself. If tachyons exist, they would never slow down to sublight speeds. They would not even know what it means to crawl at ordinary velocities. For them, light speed would not be a wall but a floor, something they can never cross downward. Their world would be alien to you, causality reversed, time flowing strangely, events ordered in ways that defy human comprehension. For decades, physicists toyed with the idea. Some argued tachyons would shatter causality, allowing information to move backward in time. Others saw them as harmless quirks of math, placeholders with no physical reality. Today, tachyons remain unproven, their status more myth than matter, but their very possibility is enough to haunt you. If such particles exist, then light speed is not the ultimate boundary. It is simply a dividing line between two realms of motion, the sublight where you live and the superluminal where something else might dwell. Even if tachyons are never found, the idea lingers. It proves that the wall is not inviolable in theory, that mathematics itself imagines ways around it, even when experiment does not. Then comes inflation, not the economic kind but cosmic inflation, the theory that in the earliest sliver of the universe, space expanded faster than light. Not objects moving through space, but space itself ballooning outward, stretching distances between points at speeds far beyond c. Here again, relativity holds, nothing moved through space faster than light. But the expansion of space itself exceeded that limit, and the evidence suggests it must have happened. The smoothness of the cosmic microwave background, the structure of galaxies, the very shape of the universe, all point to an inflationary burst faster than light could ever run. If the universe itself has already moved beyond light speed, even if only in expansion, then the question shifts. Perhaps the wall is not absolute in every context. Perhaps the prohibition applies only to matter within spacetime, not to spacetime itself. And if spacetime can outrun light once, why not again? Why not in ways you might one day harness? The whispers grow stranger still when you imagine extra dimensions. String theory, with its vibrating filaments of energy, suggests that the universe may not be three-dimensional in space, plus one of time, but many more, hidden, curled, invisible to ordinary senses. If higher dimensions exist, then perhaps shortcuts lie within them. A journey that looks impossibly long in three dimensions might be brief in a higher one, the way two distant points on a flat sheet can be folded together in the third. Here the countercase feels almost playful. Maybe you cannot outrun light within the visible frame, but maybe you can step outside the frame, into the unseen dimensions, and bypass the limit entirely. Like slipping through a backstage door while the rest of the audience waits obediently in line. Speculation, yes. Wild, untested, perhaps forever unreachable. But you cannot help but feel the pull of it. Because once again, it suggests the wall of light speed is not the end of the story. It is the outline of a puzzle whose solution may lie just beyond what you can see. And then there is the most human whisper of all, the instinct to defy. You think of the Wright brothers told that heavier-than-air flight was impossible. You think of Yuri Gagarin looking back at Earth from orbit, knowing that only decades earlier people had declared space unreachable. You think of every moment in history when certainty gave way to daring, when evidence said, no, And imagination replied, "Watch me." Of course, physics is not arrogance. The wall of light speed is not simply waiting to be smashed like a sound barrier. The consequences are deeper, stranger, more absolute, but the human pattern remains. To hear impossible is to feel an itch, an invitation, a quiet demand to look harder. Perhaps that is the true counter case, not tachyons or wormholes or warp drives, but the stubborn refusal to let the story end. Because to live with the speed of light as a final wall is to accept a kind of cosmic loneliness, to accept that most of the universe will remain forever unreachable, locked away behind the horizon of distance and time, to accept that you are bound to one star, one galaxy, while infinity stretches beyond you in silence. And perhaps that is unbearable. Perhaps that is the reason you keep searching, keep imagining, keep whispering what if. What if the universe does not mean to cage you? What if the wall is not punishment but a test? What if impossibility is not absolute but provisional, waiting for the next leap of thought, the next breakthrough, the next Einstein to bend the rules again? You breathe slowly, letting these whispers fill you. They are not evidence, they are not proof, they are possibilities, seeds. And seeds, fragile though they are, sometimes grow into forests. The counter case does not deny the wall, it does not dismiss the evidence. It simply says every wall is temporary, every law is provisional, every never is a horizon. And so you hold the question open, not with arrogance, not with certainty, but with the quiet humility of wonder. Is the speed of light really achievable? Not today, not with rockets, not with engines, not with the bodies you know. But perhaps someday in a universe still full of mysteries, the answer will bend. Until then, you walk the line between evidence and imagination, between law and longing, between the weight of what is and the possibility of what could be. And in that walk, you find not despair but wonder. The counter case is a lie. Speculation can take you far into tachyons, inflation, wormholes, hidden dimensions. But the counter case is not built only on dreams of equations and unseen realities. It is also built on engineering, the human instinct to take raw matter and shape it into machines, to test the impossible with bolts and beams and fuel tanks. If the speed of light is the horizon, then engineers have always asked, how close can we get? You begin with fusion. The sun itself is a fusion reactor, burning hydrogen into helium, releasing energy that lights the sky and feeds every living thing on Earth. For decades, humans have tried to replicate that fire on Earth, not just for power, but for propulsion. Imagine a spacecraft driven not by chemical combustion, but by nuclear fusion, each reaction releasing orders of magnitude more energy than rockets today. A steady push, patient but relentless, building velocity not in seconds but in months, years, decades. In the 1970s, a concept was born, Project Daedalus, a fusion-powered starship, vast and ambitious, fueled by helium-3 mined from distant moons. The design suggested it could reach 12% of the speed of light, not enough to break the barrier, but enough to cross interstellar space within a human lifetime. Daedalus was never built. The technology was beyond reach. Fusion itself remains elusive even for power plants, let alone starships. But the thought remains. If you can master fusion, you can inch closer to the wall. Then comes antimatter, the most potent fuel imaginable. When matter meets antimatter, they annihilate completely, releasing pure energy. No waste, no ash, no leftover, just light and power. Harness that and your ship could accelerate faster, longer, further. A perfect fuel for a journey toward the impossible. The catch is cruel. Antimatter is unimaginably expensive to produce. Grams of it would cost fortunes. Containing it is even harder. Antimatter cannot touch ordinary matter without instant destruction. Magnetic traps, delicate fields, fragile cages would be needed to hold it. For now, antimatter is measured in particles, not kilograms, and yet in theory it could carry you close to light speed. You imagine such a ship, engines roaring with pure annihilation, a vessel streaking across space, closing the gap between stars. Perhaps 90% of light speed, perhaps more, always closer, never quite there but close enough to taste it. But even if fuel is mastered, weight itself becomes a barrier. The heavier the ship, the more energy it demands. And so engineers turned to sails. Solar sails, vast and delicate sheets of reflective material pushed not by wind but by light itself. Photons carry momentum. Individually they are gentle, almost nothing, but spread a sail across kilometers and the push becomes steady, constant, infinite. No fuel to burn, no tanks to empty, only light, endless and tireless, driving you forward. Concepts already exist. The Japanese IKAROS probe unfurled a small sail in 2010, proving the principle. The breakthrough Starshot project Imagene's miniature probes, gram-sized, pushed by lasers to 20% of light speed. Fragile machines, not crude vessels, but proof that sails may carry you farther than engines ever could. And once again, imagination grows larger. Dyson-scale projects, arrays of lasers orbiting stars, directing beams across interstellar distances, pushing sails the size of continents. Entire civilizations building light-powered highways across the cosmos. The technology sounds absurd now, but so did electricity once, so did flight, so did space itself. Even chemical rockets, humble compared to these visions, have carried fragments of the counter case. Voyager 1, still drifting through interstellar space, will never approach light speed, but it whispers of persistence. Humanity's first step into the dark. Slow, yes, small, yes, but real. Each of these technologies shares a truth. None of them break the barrier. Fusion, antimatter, sails, they inch closer, perhaps to fractions of light speed, perhaps to 1/5, 1/2. Enough to cross interstellar space in lifetimes, enough to make the stars accessible. Not enough to become light. But here lies the power of the counter case. Even not enough is still defiance. Even approaching the wall is rebellion, because every increment closer is a rejection of stillness, a refusal to stay confined to one world, one star. You imagine standing aboard a fusion ship, watching stars contract ahead, time dilate around you, distances shrink. You will not reach light speed, but you will live in its shadow, in its strange borderlands where intuition fails and relativity rules. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps approaching the wall, even if never crossing it, is the real achievement. Yet the human mind rarely settles for enough. It asks for more, always more. So you wonder what happens if these technologies combine. Fusion drives pushing sails, antimatter engines feeding wormhole stabilizers, Dyson arrays powering warp bubbles. The line between engineering and speculation blurs. Each idea, improbable alone, becomes less impossible when stacked with others. The wall remains, but the cracks widen. And here you pause, because the counter case is not only about machines, it is about philosophy. It asks you to consider whether the wall of light speed is a prison or a teacher, whether impossibility is a verdict or an invitation to invent. Perhaps the true counter case is not about breaking the barrier at all, but about redefining the question. What if achieving light speed does not mean moving faster, but moving differently? What if it means abandoning rockets, abandoning sails, abandoning propulsion entirely, and embracing methods you cannot yet conceive, uploading minds into streams of light, folding consciousness into quantum entanglement, becoming not travelers through space but participants in its fabric? Speculation again, but speculation has always been the counter case against certainty. The engineers sketch diagrams, the dreamers write equations, the storytellers imagine futures. Together they build a chorus that whispers, the wall is not the end. And as you listen to that chorus, you feel the defiance rise again, calm, contemplative, but unyielding. The evidence is strong, the wall is real, but the countercase insists, maybe someday, somehow the story will bend. And you realize this is not just physics. This is faith, not blind faith, but the kind born from history, from every impossible that became real. So you keep asking, gently but persistently, is the speed of light really achievable? Not with rockets alone, not with engines alone, not with matter as you know it, but perhaps with patience, with invention, with daring. It may not always be no. The countercase is not proof, it is not certainty, it is hope woven into reason. And hope, as history shows, can move mountains, or perhaps one day even stars. Countercase has led you through engines and equations, sails and speculation. You've stood beside fusion drives, imagined antimatter fire drifted on sails pushed by starlight. You've wandered through tachyons and wormholes, toyed with extra dimensions, leaned against the wall of relativity. Each step has widened the cracks in impossibility. But now, at the farthest edge of counter-argument, you encounter ideas that feel less like engineering and more like philosophy, concepts so radical they no longer ask how to build a ship, but how to become something else entirely. Because maybe the problem is not the speed of light at all. Maybe the problem is you. Your body is made of matter, weighed down by inertia, bound to time. To approach light speed, you must wrestle with energy, with mass, with resistance that grows infinite. But what if you were no longer matter? What if you became information? This is where speculation meets post-biological imagination. The idea that consciousness might not be forever tied to carbon and water, neurons and synapses. That one day minds could be uploaded, translated into data, existing not as flesh but as patterns. If a mind can be stored, then in theory it can be transmitted. And information, unlike matter, may travel differently. Not faster than light, not yet, but perhaps more easily across beams of photons, across quantum entanglements, across whatever medium the future invents. Imagine this: not ships carrying bodies, but streams of consciousness carried on light itself. A starship not of steel but of data, a traveler not of flesh but of thought. The you that boards is not the same as the you that arrives, but perhaps identity is more flexible than you believe. Here the countercase shifts. To achieve light speed may not mean accelerating matter but transforming meaning. If you cannot take the body to the stars, perhaps you can take the self. Then comes time travel, lurking always in the shadows of relativity. For if near-light travel bends time, then perhaps faster-than-light travel breaks it completely. If you could exceed the limit, equations suggest you might move backward, not forward. Events scrambled, cause and effect inverted. This is the paradox that haunts physics. If faster-than-light travel is possible, then causality may collapse. Messages could arrive before they were sent. Actions could ripple backward, undoing their own causes. The grandfather paradox: kill the ancestor, erase the self, unmake the act, becomes not just a thought experiment but a warning. And yet paradoxes often signal deeper truths. They are not dead ends but signposts pointing toward new frameworks. Perhaps the universe protects itself, sealing the wall to preserve causality. Or perhaps the paradox reveals that time itself is not what it seems, that past, present, future are illusions of perspective, all existing at once. If that is true, then the speed of light may not be the final question at all. The real question may be, what is time? And if time is not linear, then perhaps the very concept of speed dissolves. Perhaps light speed is not a ceiling but a shadow cast by a deeper geometry, one where motion is less important than relation, less important than perspective. Then there is the simulation argument, the unsettling idea that the universe itself may be computation, reality nothing more than code. If that is so, then the speed of light may not be a cosmic constant at all, but a processing limit, the maximum refresh rate of the simulation. In that case, to achieve light speed might mean to hack the code, to rewrite the rules, to alter the simulation's parameters. Not a feat of physics, but of engineering on a cosmic scale. If the universe is programmed, then the wall is not natural law, it is software, and software eventually is rewritten. Speculation, wild and unsettling, but you cannot deny how it gnaws at the edges of the question. And finally, you consider evolution, not of bodies, not of ships, but of being itself. Perhaps the only way to achieve light speed is not to chase it, not to fight the barrier, but to grow into something that lives differently. What if intelligence evolves into forms unrecognizable? Not machines, not flesh, but something woven into space-time itself. What if the path forward is not to travel, but to transcend the very need for travel? Maybe the question is not can we achieve light speed, but must we? Maybe the hunger for it comes from a stage of development, a phase of longing. Perhaps civilizations that mature long enough learn to inhabit reality differently, spreading not by ships and engines, but by transformations beyond human grasp. And here the counter case reaches its strangest conclusion. Perhaps you do not need to break the speed of light because, in some unimaginable future, the concept of speed itself will no longer matter. You sit with this, letting its weight sink in, because it feels both humbling and liberating. The evidence is still there, unbroken, heavy as stone. The wall of light remains firm, but the counter case has shown you that walls are not always meant to be smashed head-on. Sometimes they are clues, puzzles, invitations. Sometimes the way forward is not to run faster, but to think differently. And so you return to the question once more, is the speed of light really achievable? The answer now feels more layered than ever. Maybe not, maybe never, but maybe the question itself is too small. Maybe achieving light speed will one day mean something you cannot yet imagine, uploading minds into light, bending time until causality folds, rewriting the code of the universe, evolving into beings who do not travel but inhabit. Maybe the wall of light is not the final challenge, but the first clue. The counter case rests here, not in certainty but in openness, not in proof but in wonder, not in arrogance but in humility. Because the truth is this, you do not know, you cannot know not yet, but you can imagine. And imagination, quietly, persistently, is the first step toward discovery. The evidence has spoken, the counter case has whispered, and now the two voices must meet. The synthesis way. The wall has been built, stone, by centuries of evidence. Every experiment, every telescope, every particle colliding in accelerators has whispered the same truth. The speed of light is absolute. And yet you have walked the counter case. You have wandered through loopholes, through speculation, through technologies half-born and philosophies half-dreamed. You have heard the stubborn whisper that no wall is ever final. Now both voices are in you, clear, insistent, alive. One says, this is the law. The other says, laws change. You cannot silence either, and perhaps that is the point. Because truth in the universe has never been simple. It has never been a single note. It has always been a harmony of opposites, evidence and imagination, limits and defiance, what is and what might be. So you sit here not choosing one side but holding both, letting them hum against each other, letting the tension grow. Because in that tension you find not despair but wonder. Think again of light. For photons, the speed of light is not a struggle, not a goal. It is simply what they are. They do not know time, they do not know distance. From their perspective, if such a thing can even be said, the universe is flat, instantaneous, without separation. For them, there is no journey, only presence. For you, trapped in matter, the same speed is unreachable, infinite, absolute. The wall that defines your reality is the home of another. Already you sense the paradox. The same number is both prison and freedom, both boundary and foundation, and you cannot tell whether it is generosity or cruelty. This is the shape of the synthesis. To see that the evidence is true and the counter case is also true, not in their answers but in their questions. Because when you ask, is the speed of light really achievable, you are not only asking about velocity, you are asking about existence, about what it means to be what you are, about whether your longing for freedom is meant to be satisfied or meant to be endless. The evidence says you are bound, you are finite, you are small. The counter case says you are restless, you are inventive, you are never finished. Both are right. And so the synthesis begins not by resolving the paradox, but by living inside it. You think of other walls in history, the sound barrier once thought impossible, the walls of atmosphere once thought unbreachable. Each time the wall was real until it was, but also each time the breaking of the wall did not erase the old truth, it revealed its context. The sound barrier was not false, it was a local truth, one folded inside a wider law of aerodynamics. Newton was not false, his laws still govern apples and planets, but they live inside Einstein's wider framework. Perhaps light speed is the same, absolute now, unbroken, perfect, but someday not erased, only placed inside something greater. What would that greater thing be? You do not know, no one does, but you can feel its presence like a shadow at the edge of vision. The evidence itself points toward it. Dark matter, dark energy, entanglement, paradoxes, signs that what you know is not all. The counter case is not proof, but it is a compass. It points to the cracks. It says, look here, the story is not finished. And the evidence is not denial, it is a foundation. It says, stand here, do not abandon what is known for the fantasy of what is not. So you stand on the foundation, facing the cracks, feeling both truths at once. And in that moment, you begin to see the deeper question. Not can we achieve the speed of light, but what does it mean to live in a universe with such a wall? Because whether the wall breaks or not, the longing remains. The desire to cross horizons, to push limits, to see what lies beyond. That longing is older than relativity. It is older than rockets. It is older than civilization itself. It is written in the act of looking up. The wall may never fall, but perhaps the point is not the falling. Perhaps the point is the reaching. You imagine a future civilization, millions of years from now, still bound to light speed, still unable to break the wall, and yet spread across galaxies, thriving, luminous, using sails, using wormholes, using patience measured in millennia, never breaking the limit, but never needing to. And you imagine another future, stranger, unimaginable, where the wall has been bent, where light speed is not the ceiling but the floor, where existence has shifted into something beyond human comprehension. Both futures are possible, both are beautiful, both answer the longing in different ways. So perhaps the synthesis is not about choosing, perhaps it is about holding the paradox open, accepting that evidence is real and imagination is necessary, accepting that the wall is both absolute and provisional, accepting that impossibility is both cage and invitation. And in that acceptance, something shifts in you. The question becomes softer, less desperate, not a demand for an answer, but a meditation. Is the speed of light really achievable? You do not know, you cannot know, but in the not knowing there is wonder. In the not knowing there is meaning. Because maybe the purpose of the wall is not to stop you, but to keep you reaching. The stars wait patient, silent. The photons keep racing, tireless, indifferent. And you, caught between evidence and imagination, continue to ask, to dream, to build. The synthesis is not an answer. It is a rhythm. Evidence on one side, defiance on the other. A heartbeat of curiosity. And as you sit with that rhythm, you feel the story stretching wider. Not ending, not concluding, but opening. Because the wall of light, like every wall before it, is not just a boundary, it is a mirror. And when you stare into it long enough, what you see is not physics, what you see is yourself. There is a strange beauty in limits. At first they feel cruel. They fence you in, they deny you, they press against your imagination with the weight of finality. The speed of light has always carried that kind of cruelty. A number written into existence that says, you may run, but never beyond me. But if you sit with it long enough, the cruelty shifts into something else. Because what would life be without limits? Without gravity, there would be no ground, no shape, no stars, no bodies. Without entropy, there would be no time, no change, no story. Without light speed, there would be no horizon, no longing, no challenge to push against. Limits do not only confine, they define. You realize this as you turn the paradox over in your mind. Evidence says the speed of light is absolute. Nation whispers that it might not be. Both truths press against you, and between them something emerges, not despair but meaning. Because perhaps it is not the answer that matters. Perhaps it is the reaching. Think of climbing a mountain. The summit is the dream, the prize, the goal. But if you strip away the climb, the aching legs, the thin air, the steady rhythm of one step after another, what remains is hollow. It is the climb itself that makes the summit matter. Maybe the speed of light is the universe's mountain, a summit so impossibly high that reaching it may not even be the point. The point may be the climb, the endless striving, the steady upward motion of curiosity, generation after generation. You let this thought settle, and it feels both humbling and freeing. Because what is humanity if not a creature of longing, always staring past the fence, always building, always asking what lies beyond? To be human is not to have all the answers, it is to live inside the ache of questions too large to finish. And perhaps that ache is not a flaw. Perhaps it is the essence of wonder. You think again of photons. For them there is no distance, no delay, no waiting. They do not experience the journey. They are everywhere they are meant to be instantly. From one perspective, they are perfect travelers. From another, they have no story at all. What is freedom without story? What is achievement without longing? You realize that the wall of light is not just physics. It is poetry. It is the universe telling you, you may dream of me, but you must live in the dreaming. And the dreaming itself is what makes life luminous. Without the unreachable, progress would end. Without the impossible, imagination would wither. Without the horizon, you would have no reason to move at all. So maybe the question is not whether you will ever achieve the speed of light. Maybe the question is whether you need to. Perhaps the deeper truth is this: impossibility is not the enemy of meaning, but its source. You pause and think of the old explorers, sailors staring at oceans that seemed endless, maps with dragons drawn at the edges, horizons that looked final until someone crossed them. Each time the horizon was real, each time it moved. The speed of light may be the grandest horizon of all, and maybe it too will move someday, or maybe it won't. Either way, the value is not in the moving, it is in the courage to ask. And yet a quiet voice still lingers, the voice of restlessness, the voice that says, but what if it can be broken, what if it can be reached? You do not silence that voice, you honor it, because it too is part of the synthesis. The evidence grounds you, the imagination lifts you, and the restlessness ties them together, keeps the story alive. Imagine for a moment that the wall is permanent, that no future technology, no new physics, no bold speculation ever breaks it. Light speed remains forever unreachable. What then? Would that be despair, or would it be focus? Because even if you cannot cross the wall, you can still approach it. 90%, 99, 99.9. Each step closer bends time more, shrinks space more, reveals new layers of strangeness. Perhaps the point is not crossing the barrier, but living near it, stretching existence to its limits, savoring the distortions of time, the bending of perspective. Even if you never reach light speed, you can live in its shadow. And in that shadow there is wonder. Now imagine the opposite. Suppose one day you do break the wall, you achieve the impossible, you move faster than light. What then? Would you arrive everywhere at once? Would you undo time itself? Would you become light or something stranger? It is hard to even imagine, because the very concepts you use, speed, distance, cause, dissolve at the threshold. The answer may be so alien it no longer feels like an answer. The achievement may be so complete it erases the longing that made it meaningful. So you wonder, maybe it is not the achievement that matters, but the impossibility. Because impossibility gives you direction, it gives you meaning, it keeps you humble in the face of infinity. And in that humility, you find peace. The synthesis is not a solution. It is not a triumph of evidence over imagination, or of imagination over evidence. It is the quiet recognition that both are true, both are necessary, both are beautiful. The speed of light is unreachable. The speed of light may one day be reached. Both statements live together in you, not as contradictions but as companions. And in that companionship, you find something larger than answers. You find wonder that does not end. The stars are still there, the photons are still racing, the wall is still shining. And you, small and curious, still ask. That asking is the synthesis. That asking is the point. You lean back, breathing slowly, letting the paradox surround you. You feel not trapped, but alive, because life itself is the act of reaching toward what cannot be held. And so the story continues, not closed, not solved, but deepened, because the question is not just about light. The question is about longing. And longing, unlike light, has no limit. Step back for a moment. Step so far back that you leave behind rockets and engines, equations and theories, even the human ache for freedom. Step out until the very notion of you grows faint, until the Earth becomes a dot, until the Milky Way itself shrinks into a single spiral among billions. From this distance, the question changes. It is no longer, can we achieve the speed of light? It becomes, why does the universe have such a limit at all? Because limits are not accidents. They are patterns woven into the very fabric of reality. Gravity, entropy, the speed of light, these are not just arbitrary numbers. They are the architecture of existence, Without them, the universe would not be the universe. Imagine for a moment a cosmos without the speed of light as boundary. What would it be? If information could travel infinitely fast, there would be no horizon. Every part of the universe would be instantly connected to every other. There would be no past, no future, only simultaneity, one eternal present. Cause and effect would blur, time itself would lose meaning. Would such a universe be richer or emptier? Perhaps the wall of light is not cruelty but necessity. Perhaps it is the very condition that allows time to exist, that allows story to unfold, that allows beings like you to live inside a narrative of before and after. Without it, there would be no drama, no longing, no journey. Everything would already be everywhere, every signal already sent, every possibility already collapsed into a single instant. The speed of light is not only a ceiling, it is a canvas. It is the reason the cosmos has shape. Look at galaxies, spirals and clusters, filaments stretching like veins across the dark. Their structure is possible only because information, gravity and light move at finite speeds. If everything happened everywhere at once, the delicate web of the cosmos would never form. Stars would not cluster, planets would not orbit, chemistry would not unfold. The slowness of light is not a barrier to life, it is the condition for life. So perhaps, when you ask whether the speed of light is achievable, you are also asking whether you would be willing to dissolve the very structure that makes existence possible. Because to undo the wall may be to undo the universe as you know it. And yet the longing remains. You look again at horizons. The cosmic horizon where galaxies recede beyond visibility, carried away by expansion. The event horizon of black holes where light itself bows and disappears. Horizons defined not by matter but by speed, by the constancy of C. Everywhere you look, the wall of light shapes what can be seen and what cannot, what can be known and what must remain hidden. It is not only a law, it is a veil. And here another thought enters, quiet and unsettling. Perhaps the veil is intentional, not in the sense of design, not in the sense of a universe crafted for you, but in the sense that boundaries may be the only way reality can hold mystery. If everything were visible, if everything were reachable, if everything were instant, there would be no unknown. And without the unknown, curiosity itself would wither. The universe seems to love mystery. It seems to insist on it. Black holes swallowing information, dark matter refusing to reveal its nature, quantum particles behaving like riddles, the speed of light standing as the most unyielding riddle of all. Perhaps impossibility is not an obstacle but a gift, a way for the universe to ensure that beings within it always have something to reach for, always have a horizon to chase, always have questions too large to finish. Because what is infinity without longing? It is blankness, silence, perfection so total it erases itself. But with longing, with boundaries, you get stories, you get motion, you get life. And so, as you zoom out to the cosmic scale, you begin to see the wall of light differently. Not just as a challenge to overcome, not just as a puzzle to solve, but as part of the very grammar of existence. Without it, there would be no narrative. With it, the universe has rhythm. Still, you cannot silence the counter case. Even here, even at this scale, the whisper continues. But what if? What if the wall is not absolute? What if it is a local truth, a rule for now, a condition of this chapter of the universe's story? What if new physics, hidden in the cracks of dark matter and dark energy, will one day reveal that the wall can bend? Would that undo the cosmos, or simply transform it? It is impossible to know, but the question itself is enough, because whether the wall falls or not, it has already done its work. It has shaped you, guided you, defined your curiosity. It has given you both evidence to respect and imagination to defy. It has made you restless, humble, hopeful, small, vast, and maybe that is its true purpose. The universe is not only stars and galaxies, equations and particles. It is also the experience of beings inside it. And for you, the speed of light is not only physics, it is philosophy. It is the number that forces you to think about longing, about boundaries, about what it means to exist inside mystery. So you sit with it, breathing slowly, letting both truths wash over you. The speed of light is absolute. The speed of light may not be absolute. Both statements shimmer in the vastness, like twin stars orbiting each other, never colliding, never resolving. And you realize, maybe the synthesis is not about choosing one or the other. Maybe it is about learning to live in the orbit between them. The wall of light is real, but the longing to cross it is also real. And in that tension, existence finds its poetry. You zoom out further until galaxies themselves blur into filaments, until the universe becomes one great structure, woven of light and shadow. And even here, even at the largest scale, the wall of light is present, shaping everything, holding everything, whispering through everything. Not an enemy, not a cage, but a horizon. And horizons are what keep you moving. You have wandered far now, from the experiments of Michelson and Morley to the shadow of black holes, from equations etched in chalk to whispers of tachyons and warp drives, from the vast web of galaxies to the hidden dimensions of speculation. Evidence and countercase have circled one another like dancers, and in their rhythm you have found synthesis. But now the journey bends inward, because the question is no longer just about the cosmos, it is about you. Is the speed of light really achievable? At first it seemed like a technical question, a matter of physics, of engines, of equations. But after everything, it reveals itself as something else. It is a mirror held up to your own life. Because you too are bound by limits, you too live inside walls. Not only the wall of light speed, but the wall of mortality, the wall of time, the wall of uncertainty. You too ache against boundaries you cannot cross. You too feel the longing for more, for longer days, for wider horizons, for answers always just beyond reach. And perhaps that is why the question matters so much. Because it is not only about photons and particles, it is about the human condition itself. You live knowing you will die, you move knowing time will carry you forward and never back. You dream knowing many dreams will outlast you. The wall of light is only the cosmic version of what you already know intimately, that existence is bounded. And yet those very boundaries are what give your life shape. If you were infinite, if you had all the time in the world, would you ever truly long? Would you ever ache? Would you ever chase? Without the walls, would you ever feel wonder at all? Mortality, like the speed of light, is both cruel and necessary. It hurts, and yet it defines, it confines, and yet it gives meaning. So you begin to see the paradox differently, not as a cosmic puzzle to be solved, but as a reflection of yourself. Light speed is unreachable. Life is finite. And yet within those limits, you burn with the desire to reach further, to love harder, to imagine more. Perhaps that is the true synthesis, not escaping the walls, but finding meaning inside them. You breathe slowly, letting this thought settle deep. Imagine again a photon. To it there is no time, no becoming, no story. Perfect, yes, but silent, motionless in experience. To be light is to be free of boundaries, but also free of narrative. Now imagine yourself, limited, bound by mass, aging, finite. Imperfect, yes, but alive with story. Your days unfold, your choices matter, your longing drives you forward. Without boundaries, there would be no journey. Without impossibility, there would be no dream. Maybe that is the secret the speed of light has been whispering all along. Not that you must cross it, but that you must learn to live in its shadow. Not that you must become infinite, but that you must embrace the finite as the place where meaning lives. You let this soften you, because the paradox of light speed is the paradox of life, to be bound and yet to reach, to be finite and yet to dream infinite dreams, to live in a universe where walls exist, and to discover that it is the longing for what lies beyond them that makes you human. And so the question becomes less about physics and more about philosophy, less about whether you will one day build a ship that crosses the wall, and more about how you live now, knowing the wall exists. Do you despair at what you cannot reach? Or do you cherish what you can? Do you rage against the horizon? Or do you find beauty in the act of chasing it? The choice is yours. It has always been yours. Perhaps the reason the speed of light fascinates you is not because it promises freedom, but because it reflects your own longing so perfectly. It is the cosmic mirror of your mortality, your restlessness, your ache for more. To ask about it is to ask about yourself. And maybe that is why the question has no answer, because the point was never the answer. The point was the asking. The stars still wait, their light still travels slowly, steadily across gulfs of time. Some of it will never reach you, forever trapped behind the cosmic horizon. And yet you look up anyway, you trace constellations, you dream of journeys, you let the unreachable inspire you. That is the synthesis, to see the wall and still love the sky, to feel the ache and still cherish the longing, to know you are finite and still live as though wonder has no end. The speed of light is not yours, not yet, maybe not ever, but the desire for it is yours, and that desire shapes you, defines you, carries you. It carries you the way a river carries leaves. It carries you the way wind carries seeds. It carries you the way light itself carries memory across billions of years. So when you ask, is the speed of light really achievable? Perhaps the truer question is, what does your longing make of you? Because whether or not the wall falls, the longing remains, and in that longing you are already infinite. You close your eyes, feeling the paradox like a pulse inside you, the evidence and the counter case, the limits and the longing, the impossibility and the imagination. All of it alive, all of it unresolved, all of it beautiful. The synthesis is not about winning or losing, proving or disproving. It is about learning to live with the mystery, to walk with it, to let it be part of your story. And maybe in the end that is what the universe asks of you, not to conquer it but to wonder at it, not to break every wall but to learn what walls mean, not to demand infinity but to cherish the finite while you have it. The stars are still shining, the photons are still racing, and you are still asking. That is enough. The synthesis closes here, not with resolution but with peace. And as it closes, the horizon opens again, beckoning you into the next chapter. Because beyond synthesis lies the unknown, beyond the wall lies the silence, beyond the question lies the infinite loop of wonder. The open loop is waiting. The wall of light still stands. It has stood since the birth of the universe, since the first photons burst free in the newborn fire of creation, racing outward, carrying the memory of beginnings. It stands now woven into every equation, every experiment, every corner of the cosmos you can glimpse. And it will stand long after you are gone, after your species is gone, after galaxies themselves have thinned into dust. The speed of light is eternal, and yet so is the question. You return to it softer now, not demanding answers but circling like a moth around a flame. Is the speed of light really achievable? Not yes, not no, not now, not ever. Just the question itself, luminous, infinite, echoing. Because the question is not a door to be shut. It is a horizon to be walked, and horizons never end. They recede with every step, always visible, always just beyond reach. So you walk through thought experiments. You imagine ships that stretch like rubber bands as they accelerate, time slowing for their crew, stars contracting into blue fire ahead. You imagine standing inside that ship, staring out the window as decades pass outside and only moments pass within. You do not reach light speed, but you live beside its strangeness, intimate with its distortions. You walk through speculations, tachyons racing in secret realms, wormholes yawning like tunnels between galaxies, extra dimensions curled tight and waiting. Maybe none of it is true. Maybe all of it is true. You do not know. You are not meant to know yet. The beauty is in the wondering. You walk through futures, civilizations building sails the size of planets, lasers stretching across star systems, antimatter bottled like lightning in a cage. Maybe your descendants will sail that way, drifting toward nearby stars, patient as centuries. Maybe they will not. The beauty is in the imagining. You walk through mysteries, dark matter hiding in silence, dark energy pushing galaxies apart, black holes swallowing light itself. Every mystery stitched with the same constant, light speed as ruler, as wall, as veil. Maybe one day you will pierce those mysteries. Maybe you won't. The beauty is in the pursuit. Step by step, horizon by horizon, you walk deeper into the open question. And here something softens, because you begin to feel that the question itself is a kind of answer. If you could know for certain, if the universe announced clearly once and for all, yes, light speed is achievable, or no, it will never be, something in you would close, the longing would collapse, the wonder would fade, but the silence, the uncertainty keeps the ache alive, and that ache is what makes the stars shine in your imagination as much as in the sky. So you let the silence be, you let the open loop remain open. You think again of mortality, of limits. Your life is finite, yes, your days are numbered, but do you not live more fully because of it? Do you not love more fiercely, create more urgently because you know time is short? Would infinity ever teach you the same? Perhaps the speed of light is the universe's way of giving itself infinity without erasing the urgency of longing. A horizon that will always call you forward, always hold you in motion, always keep you wondering. You lie back, at least in imagination, and picture yourself floating in the void, stars scattered like dust, galaxies as faint swirls, the cosmic microwave background humming faintly, the afterglow of the beginning itself. You are small, fragile, a breath on a stone orbiting a star, and yet inside you the question burns brighter than galaxies. That is the wonder, that something so small as you can ask something so infinite. That the speed of light, woven into the bones of the cosmos, is also woven into the bones of your curiosity. The photons that light your eyes are the same photons that define your limits. The same constant that builds galaxies builds your wonder. The wall is not separate from you, you are part of it. And maybe that is why the question cannot resolve, because to resolve it would be to resolve yourself, to close the open loop of your own existence. And existence is not meant to close, it is meant to circle, to ache, to ask. So you let yourself drift here in the unresolved. You imagine light itself as a companion, always faster than you, always unreachable, always just ahead. Like a friend who runs slightly ahead on the path, never slowing, never stopping. You cannot catch it, but because of it you keep moving, you keep walking, you keep dreaming. Perhaps light speed is not meant to be achieved. Perhaps it is meant to be chased. And maybe that is enough. The stars remain, the photons remain, the wall remains. And you, restless, finite, luminous in your longing, remain too. The open loop does not close, it does not need to. It only breathes, widening, softening, echoing into silence. Is the speed of light really achievable? The universe does not answer. The silence is the answer. And in that silence, you feel the strange peace of wonder without conclusion. The question remains. It has remained since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond them. It has remained since the first physicist scribbled equations on chalkboards, chasing patterns hidden in the dark. It has remained through rockets launched, satellites drifting, scopes peering into the faintest edge of light. Is the speed of light really achievable? The wall still stands, the longing still burns, the silence still answers with silence. And yet, there is something strangely beautiful in this unending loop. Because you realize now that the question is not meant to close, it is not a riddle waiting for its solution. It is a melody meant to be played again and again, each generation adding its own notes, its own harmonies. The music is not in the resolution, it is in the echo. You listen for that echo in yourself. Every time you look at the night sky you feel it, the quiet ache, the pulse of wonder, the recognition that the light entering your eyes has traveled across impossible gulfs, carrying stories older than you can imagine. Each photon a fragment of time, a message from the past. And still, even as it arrives, it reminds you of what cannot arrive, of what is lost beyond horizons, beyond expansion, beyond reach. And yet you keep looking, you keep asking. The open loop lives there, in the persistence of the question despite the silence of the answer. In the act of wondering, not the act of knowing. You close your eyes and drift deeper into the thought. Perhaps one day the wall will break. Perhaps some civilization, long after yours is dust, will find a way. Perhaps they will bend space-time, slip through wormholes, transform themselves into light itself. And perhaps they will look back at this moment, at this age of questions, with both pity and admiration. Pity for your ignorance, admiration for your wonder. Or perhaps the wall will never break. Perhaps light speed is the eternal boundary, unyielding until the universe itself grows cold and still. Perhaps no one will ever achieve it, and the question will outlive every species, every star. But even then, even if the wall is eternal, the question will have mattered because it shaped you, it pulled you forward, it made you restless enough to build fires, ships, engines, telescopes. It made you daring enough to leave caves, cross oceans, step onto the moon. It made you humble enough to stare at the stars and feel both small and infinite. The speed of light may not be yours, but the longing for it is. And that longing is everything. You breathe slowly and it feels like you are breathing with the universe itself. Inhale the ache of limits. Exhale the wonder of possibility. Inhale the evidence. Exhale the imagination. This rhythm is the synthesis. This rhythm is the open loop. And as you let yourself sink into it, you begin to feel the boundaries blur between science and poetry, between knowledge and mystery, between yourself and the stars. Because what are you really, if not a fragment of starlight given voice? The atoms in your blood were forged in stars that lived and died billions of years ago. The light that defines your limits also built you. You are already woven into its fabric. To ask if you can achieve the speed of light is to ask whether you can return to what you already are. And perhaps that is why the question feels so haunting, because part of you already knows the answer. Not in words, not in equations, but in the quiet ache of wonder. You drift deeper still. The stars blur, the galaxies soften. The entire universe becomes a kind of dream, a tapestry of light stitched across silence. You feel yourself dissolve into it, neither knowing nor needing to know, only asking, only wondering. Is the speed of light really achievable? The universe does not answer, but it also does not turn away. It lets you ask, it lets you ache, it lets you dream. And maybe that is the answer. Not yes, not no, but the gift of the question itself. Because as long as the question remains, you remain. As long as the horizon recedes, you walk. As long as the wall stands, you dream of crossing. And in that dream, in that endless, open, unfinished dream, you are infinite. The silence stretches wide, the stars shine on, the photons race tireless, eternal, and you drift gently into the space between knowing and not knowing. The loop stays open, the question lingers, the wonder endures, and as sleep pulls you closer, softer, quieter, the last thought you carry is not an answer but an echo. Is the speed of light really achievable? The question breathes, the silence hums, and the story never ends.